Office politics isn't a dirty word. In fact, if you know how to use it, it can be really beneficial to helping you navigate your workplace and advance your career. I'm Ashley. I'm the lead mentor with Mentor Me. And today I'm going to talk to you about office politics, what they are and why they aren't all bad. I really love talking about career development strategy and really digging into the taboo topics about work because so often professional women are nervous, are anxious, are a little scared about the things that they don't know about work. And so they avoid it or they follow popular rhetoric around it. Like office politics are bad, you shouldn't talk about, certain things at work, everybody's against everybody, right? And so we have these myths that we believe about the world of work, and often they will hold us back in our careers. So I'm here as an expert, right? As a career development mentor and expert in career strategy to kind of hip you to game around office politics, to talk to you about what they actually are, what they are not, and actually how you can use them to your advantage. Because the truth is that office politics aren't all bad. It's not a dirty word. It's not something that you should be avoiding at work. You can actually use office politics to your advantage. And in today's live, I'm going to talk about how. But before we kind of talk about how to use office politics, I want to talk about what office politics are. So office politics are basically the ways in which your office, your workplace, your colleagues work with and engage one another, right? That's all office politics means. It's about the ways of doing work in your organization, the ways of doing work in your unit, the ways of doing work in your department, the ways of doing work in your institution. Many of these things and many of pieces of office politics are known to you, right? Someone at orientation will tell you, okay, hey, this is the way we do this. This is the way we do that. This is the way we advance this. This is the way we advance that. Oftentimes people will tell you the politics of work, but there are lots of pieces of politics that are maybe unknown to you. They are an undercurrent. They're kind of flying under the radar, and often it's hard for professional women to kind of know what they are and actually use them to their advantage because everybody's kind of in the corner whispering about the political things about work. And if you don't know them, if you're not hip to them, if you don't know how to recognize them, if you don't know how to leverage them, you're on the outside, right? And just throw some hearts up on the screen if you've ever experienced that. It just, whether you're watching on YouTube, on replay, or you're watching me live today, just put a heart on the screen if you've ever felt like you were on the outside at work. Like everyone else knew something that you didn't. Like everyone else had some strategy, some network. They knew something that you just didn't know, right? Yeah, I'm seeing those hearts come up. And so this is common, right? Where you'll feel like at work, everybody knows something that you don't. Everybody got some inside strategy that you're not aware of. People have been there longer. They have more connections, and you just kind of feel like you're on the outside. Let me know if you've ever experienced that. And if so, I want you to know you're not alone in that. I think particularly if you're a person with a documented disability, if you are a Black person, if you're a woman, if you are, young, if you are, older, like any marginalization, any difference, if you will, can put you on the outside at work. It can people can be discriminatory, they can be cliquey, right? Like all of those things can happen at work. But again, office politics aren't inherently bad, right? They're not inherently bad. They're simply the ways in which work works. And sometimes they can be bad, but they're not always. And so I think it's important that you are discerning, that you are discriminate, that you are intentional about surveying, right, the landscape at work, really looking at the landscape at work and thinking about how you can leverage office politics to your advantage. So let's dive into that. So essentially what office politics is that it allows you to position yourself as a highly capable and highly achieved professional that gets things done. That's what office politics allows you to do, right? And when used appropriately, when used intentionally, when used strategically, office politics can put you on the map. Office politics can elevate you. Office politics can get your name in rooms that they wouldn't otherwise be in, right? Being able to leverage them successfully and intentionally and thoughtfully and artfully is an avenue to advancing your career, right? Like that's a real thing that you should be thinking about doing. And I think that the art of that is something that I love to teach about and I love to train about. And I do that in my Mentor Me Mastermind program. The Mastermind is a 6-month executive coaching experience for mid-level and senior level professional women. And so if you know you're needing some executive coaching around, navigating office politics and navigating leadership at work and, really being able to think thoughtfully about how you can advance your career to the highest levels of leadership, those are the kinds of things those are kind of questions we're answering, every single week in my mastermind. So if that's support that you feel like you would benefit from, definitely encourage you to go to my website at mentor-me.org and join us in the Mentor Me Mastermind. I am accepting one more mentee in that program this month. So definitely encourage you to join us. And so again, when we think about office politics, one of the things that I think it's important to really dive into and to think about is that they aren't all bad, that you can use them to your advantage. But the way that you use them to your advantage is that you think about, what's going on in your office, what's going on in your unit, what's going on in your organization, and how can you use what you know to position yourself well in the organization. And let me be clear, this is not about manipulation. This is not about kissing butt. This is not about being a suck up. This is about positioning. This is about intentionality. This is about trying at work. And I was sharing earlier that I think that some of us take a Mother Teresa attitude at work, right? It's like, oh, I'm just here to help. I'm so lowly. Pay me pennies. Don't worry. I'm just here to help. And that kind of mentality will have you ruining your career, right? Too often what I see is that women are kind of playing in the background, playing the number 2, playing the number 3, when they really should be popping out as leaders. And so if that's you, if that's where you find yourself, I really want to invite you to interrupt that pattern or that behavior around kind of playing second fiddle to other people, not speaking to your expertise, not really being engaged in office politics because you don't want to, put yourself out there. You don't want to be bothered with that. Be bothered, get engaged, get connected. Being able to engage in office politics is a critical part of advancing as a professional. And it doesn't mean, again, that you have to be fake or phony or disingenuous, but you do need to be engaged and active in the work. So let's talk more deeply about like some of the strategies that I often invite my mentees to use around office politics. And if you see me looking to the right, I wrote some notes about office politics. I'm going to be publishing these to my Instagram as well and some slides, so you'll get access to these notes as well. So here's a couple ways that, you can kind of leverage office politics to your advantage. So number one, office politics can look like positioning yourself to be recognized for your contributions, sharing with your supervisor when you and your team do good work, right? So I think that sometimes, again, we kind of play the Mother Teresa role. We don't want to talk about our good work. Somebody says we're good at something. Oh, shucks, never mind. It's no big deal. I'm just here to help. We kind of play the background. We don't like recognition. We don't want to be seen for our good work. And we're just kind of like humble Hattie, right? And, that ain't cute. It's just not cute, right? I'm not saying you have to be like, I'm an expert, hear me roar. But I do think advocating for yourself, positioning, that's good office politics. That's good intention, right? So be thinking about how you can position yourself to be recognized for your good work, right? If there are nominations that come out for the best, project manager, if there are nominations that come out for the best accountant, if there are nominations that come out for the best educator, throw your name in the hat. Tell your supervisor or leader that you want to be nominated. Ask your team to nominate you. Nominate your entire team for a project that you all worked in. This time out for playing second fiddle to anyone. Time out for being humble Hattie. This is no longer us. Office politics requires us to be intentional about advocating for our good work. And certainly we should. We're doing good work. You're a stellar employee. You're knocking it out of the park. You're driving results for your clients, for your customers, for your students, for your stakeholders. That deserves to be recognized. That deserves to be praised. That deserves to be paid well. And you being intentional about positioning the recognition of your good work is good office politics, right? So that's strategy number one. Strategy number two is Office politics can look like having your ideas taken seriously and advocating for yourself. So let me give you an example. I work with, in my former role, I worked with a number of women who would have great ideas, would just be ideating and were futuristic thinkers and were always thinking 2, 10, 15 steps ahead and just were brilliant minds, but they would sort of share their good ideas in public spaces, let other people take it and run with it, and they would never get public praise or credit for that. They would take their good ideas as throwaway ideas. They would be like, oh yeah, I feel like this is something we should do, but I don't know, I haven't researched it, I haven't looked into it, I don't have a budget for it, there's probably no way we can do it. And meanwhile, the looky-loos are listening, are paying attention, and they're taking your good ideas, pilfering them, and then, positioning them as their own. And let me know if that's ever happened to you. Just type a 1 in the chat if you've ever had a really good idea at work, you were driving results, you were really putting yourself out there, you were doing something that was meaningful, and someone kind of came in and swooped in the last minute and was like, oh yeah, I was thinking about doing that too. Oh yeah, I did that in the past. Oh yeah, we should do that. Let me take that idea to my boss. Let me know if that's ever happened to you, right? Raise your hand if you've been a victim of idea theft at work. Yes, Totally Mocha said yeah. And so you're not alone, Totally Mocha. I think so many women have been in that space, right? And I think that one of the reactions to having that experience at work is that we start to shut down. We don't share our good ideas anymore. We just keep quiet. We kind of play the background. I ain't gonna say nothing because I don't want nobody to steal my idea. But the problem with that strategy is that now you're not saying nothing at all, sis. You ain't shut down. You ain't lost your shine. You ain't lost your energy. You ain't lost your invigoration. You ain't lost your good ideas. Right? You let someone steal something from you one time and now you don't speak up in the meeting anymore. You just chat your friend in the Teams chat like, girl, they don't know what they talk about. I tried that last year. Or I got a better idea, but I'm just not going to say nothing. You've taken on that mentality, right? Right. And you don't got to put no 1 in the chat if that's you, but I know you. I know some of you have started to get reserved in your career, right? You started to play the background, right? You're no longer advocating for yourself at work. So good office politics can look like having your ideas taken seriously. No longer are people like, oh, well, she don't know what she's talking about. Or yeah, she be having good ideas, but she don't never see anything through. Good office politics is positioning in a way that actually people will take you seriously. They'll invite you in the room. They'll invite you to do the presentation. They'll give you the $80,000 you need to launch your project. They'll do that work for you, right? And so, I think that, again, this is not time for us to be shying away from the spotlight. This is not time for us to be shying away from advocating for ourselves. Instead, I really want to invite you to lean into office politics, right? And again, office politics doesn't require you to be fake or phony or disingenuous, but it doesn't require engagement. It does require for you to wake up at work. It does require for you to step back out in front at work. And maybe you've been hurt, bruised, disappointed, disengaged because a colleague or a coworker or your boss or your old best friend, robbed you of a good idea, but it doesn't mean you can't get re-engaged in your work and use office politics to your advantage. So that's strategy number 2, that office politics can look like having your good ideas taken seriously and you actually advocating for yourself in your career. And the third strategy that I wanted to talk about in office politics, and this is my favorite one, is that office politics can look like positively influencing what other people think and do, right? Office politics can look like positively influencing what other people think and do. And this is my favorite because, I like to think of myself as an influencer, right? I like to think of myself as an influencer, not like the girlies, who are selling, body wraps and, lipstick on the internet. I'm not that kind of influencer. But at work, I certainly am a person who will say the same thing over and over and over and over and over and over again till people start saying it for me, right? Like I'm the type of person where I've been in meetings where people will repeat things that I told them as if it's their own idea. And I don't take offense to that. Here's why, because I'm influencing, right? I'm being intentional about saying my mantra, my values, what I want to see happen so clearly that other people are starting to adopt it as their own, right? So I can sit back and be like, yep, that's the way we need to go. That's the way we need to move. And I don't even have to say it. I've influenced them so much that they're shouting my good ideas from the rooftops. And I don't have to take offense that they've stolen something from me. I'm changing the culture. I'm shifting the way people think about things just through my ability to engage in office politics. And let me give you like a very specific example. So, one of the things, in my former organization is that I started to talk about the population of students that I serve. And at that institution, I primarily served online students. I started to talk about online students as a marginalized student population, right? I was shouting basically from the rooftops that this population of students were undervalued, were underserved, had less resources, had less access, were not being taken seriously by the institution. And I started to say we need to treat them like a marginalized student group, similar to how we treat underrepresented students, how we treat minority students, how we treat students who are veterans or military affiliated. I started to talk about how the population of students I served were underserved in the larger institution, right? This became a mantra. People were talking about the students that I served. This was not a part of the zeitgeist, right? Like people were not talking about this like this before I started talking about it. But then I would not even have to be in the meeting. People would be bringing my idea to the meeting and say, hey, we need to take this seriously because, when in my last conversation with Ashley, she was saying this or that. And, what I've heard, from this is that we need to treat this like this because in my last conversation with Ashley, she said this or that, right? This is office politics, me influencing the conversation even when I'm not in the room, right? And that's when it really matters because of course, depending on your position and depending on your pay, baby, you can put your thing on the table and be like, well, this is the way it's going to go. Right. And this is how we got to do it. If you have that positional power, if you got that title, if you're in charge, you can just say, hey, this is how it's going to go. But if you're not in charge, if you're not in the senior position, sometimes it's hard to impact the organization. Sometimes it's hard to get things going. Sometimes it's hard to influence, right? But good office politics will allow you to positively impact and positively influence the culture of your job, the way in which your work works, the way in which they talk about your work or your primary stakeholders. It will help drive influence in the organization.